Hello, yogis. So here's a question that I get a lot that I wanted to take a moment to address. Should I teach poses that I don't practice myself? That is a great question, and what it indicates to me is that you are wanting to be a conscientious yoga teacher and balance your skills and what is in your kind of scope of teaching, and also balance that with what your students might desire or crave. So the first question to ask is, why would you be teaching that pose? So I just want you to step back and think, am I teaching that pose because I feel like my students want it and they're going to be unsatisfied if they don't do that thing? Well, I'd say just consider your motivations. If your intention is to elevate them, elevate your practice, and serve your students who want to go to the next level, great. I think that's a really powerful motivation. But if your intention is, I feel less than if I don't give them hard things to do and entertain them, then take a step back and kind of parse that out. So I just want to take this opportunity to remind all of us out there that sometimes we feel like our job as a yoga teacher is to entertain our students. It's not. It is to create a space where they can connect more deeply to their own presence and the power of their awareness. And we just happen to do that through some crazy poses. All right, so just consider your motivations and what's driving you to ask that question, just to start. Now, if you want to teach a pose that you don't do, let me just say that there are lots of times that I might teach a pose that I'm not currently practicing, but I will have an understanding of what is required in the body to stabilize, enliven, and take that to the next level. So, you know, there are plenty of times that I've been with teachers who maybe don't practice a pose anymore, but they're teaching it, but they've already had it in their body, so they already understand it. So, you know, this might come up if you're injured. You know, if you have a shoulder injury, you're not going to be doing handstand, but you might have already practiced it and have it in your body. That's fine. You can teach that because you understand how to direct students to get there. You know, if you're pregnant, you might decide not to practice certain postures, which might not be ideal for your body, but you've practiced them in the past, so you have an idea of how you can get students there. So this is what's key about your teaching, because keep in mind that from my point of view, as a teacher, I want you to not be demonstrating the whole class. My ideal for you is that you are demonstrating and doing the poses when it serves your students, you know, if they need a visual cue, but you're not demonstrating just for the sake of being on your mat or cueing. The other times you should be looking out in the room, or if you're on Zoom, you're like right here with your students, right? You should be seeing them and being in the room with them. So, you know, teaching a pose that you don't practice, you know, if you don't have to demonstrate it, then it's not such a big deal. Or if you're doing a pause, you have the option to have a student demonstrate the pose, which is oftentimes a great idea anyways, because they're usually more warmed up and ready to do it. So, but here's the thing. You have to understand in your own body and have a sense of what are the key actions that are needed to safely move students in the direction of this pose. What do they have to be able to do? And because this is probably a more complicated pose, I want you to also think about what are the stages of this pose, right? What are the options I'm going to give students, and what are the key benchmarks or indicators that I need to see from them for them to move to the next level? So these are things that you have to be a little bit more strategic, explicit, and clear about if you're not going to demonstrate the pose yourself. And if you're not sure about those things because the pose isn't in your body, well, that's a good reason to just teach the prep, right? Or to not teach all of those variations. So that's kind of the bottom line. If you know how to instruct it and you have a visceral sense in your body of what's required to do that next step, even if you yourself don't quite get there, then teach the pose, because you can articulate what is necessary for your students. And on that note, I think it can be really inspiring to see a teacher, let's just take handstand as an example. If as a teacher, I can instruct the preparatory poses, maybe I can do some little hops to kick up, but I can't really hold the full pose myself, I think it can be really inspiring and elevating for your student body to see that you are also a work in progress. So there's no shame in that, my darlings. We are all works in progress in so many ways. And it's inspiring to be able to share that journey with your students and to be human with them. One more caveat to this, especially if you're teaching a pose that you're not demonstrating yourself, you really need to be super clear on what you need to see from your students to keep them safe, right? So if it's an inversion or if it's a big back bend, you need to have eagle eyes and be really clear, like, what are the risk factors? What are the contraindications? How will I know someone is doing it safely in their body? What do I need to see from them? And then what do I see? If I see something, how do I intervene if I need to dial them back a step? So as long as you are clear on those points, then yes, you can teach a pose that you do not practice yourself. So just to summarize, if you're teaching a pose that you don't practice, as long as you have a sense of it in your body and can clearly articulate those actions, contraindications, movements, and stages to your students in a really clear way, then you can teach it. But if you don't have it in your body, or you can't quite see what the stages are or how to progress safely through the sequence of getting into the pose, then work on it and leave that. Because after all, the yoga practice isn't about our fancy poses, it's about the quality of our presence.